Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Scotch in a kitchen cabinet, and he never drank from it. So one night he went to bed. I think I might have seen this on a TV show. I got the idea. I went to this Scotch bottle. I poured out a shot. He had 1 shot glass, and then I refilled the Scotch bottle with like just a tiny bit of water to make up for the difference. And I took the shot, and I didn't really feel anything, to be honest. So the next night, I was like, okay, let's ramp this up. I took 2 shots out of the Scotch bottle. Each time I refilled it just to make sure in case my dad checked, he wouldn't notice. Took 2 shots. Did not feel a lot. I was pretty tall, so maybe it was that. But I was like, okay, let's keep going. I kept doing that night after night after night until one night I had 16 shots in a row. And to this day, I still can't drink water.
Good morning. It's Saturday, Rules Saturday, October the 25th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have no free lunch, motivation, meditation, and how to manipulate everybody. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and remove your hats for the national anthem of the United States of America.
Can you see by the tongues
Thank you. And now, No Free Lunch, 250 Economic Truths by David Bahnsen.
The way to maximize production is to maximize the incentives to production. And the way to do that, as the modern world has discovered, is through the system known as capitalism, the system of private property, free markets, and free enterprise. Henry Hazlitt. The most successful of economic ideas are ones that understand incentives, play into incentives, reject disincentives, and seek systems that broadly incentivize what we want in our socioeconomic order. Hazlitt understood this as well as any economist in the last 200 years. Once you can say the most basic of economic truisms, we want more production, you can easily consider what produces the incentive for production. That incentive is the profit motive, embedded in the free enterprise system.
And that was There's No Free Lunch by David Bahnsen. Back in a minute.
The crashing failure of the feminist movement. Going back 250 years, the enemies of America thought long and hard about how to destroy the fledgling experiment of a democratic republic that our founding fathers had envisioned. It was and continues to be clear to them that America's strength is a function of three phenomena. A fervent belief in the God who makes miracles happen. For just one example, the crushing defeat of the thunderously powerful English Empire's armies by blazing patriots like General George Washington and his ragtag army of American heroes. An equally ardent belief in and passion for the concept of freedom. Men who knew they were going to die, and their wives who believed their deaths were for the noble cause of freedom, all sacrificed to bring about our victory over the monarchy that wanted to continue to rule us. The most passionate was the embrace, belief in, and allegiance to family, its sanctity, its strength, its ability to weather all storms and overcome all obstacles. If they could destroy all three, our enemies reasoned. The masses they considered essentially stupid would be forced to rely exclusively on big government. And so, to this day, the socialists cum communists among us are employing, as their predecessors did, every malevolent, criminal, and vicious tactic they can muster to actualize that goal. Astounding progress. The America haters among us have already infiltrated our public schools and contaminated generations of students with anti-American propaganda, as well as explicit pornography and grooming, even in kindergarten. Lured both Christians and Jews to abandon their faiths and to worship the new God of social justice. Succeeded in the leftist and, I believe, traitorous infiltration of our military and intelligence services like the FBI and CIA, until, that is, the redemptive entrance of President Trump and his Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, rigged the 2020 presidential election, which political activist Dinesh D'Souza also proved in his explosive film, 2,000 Mules. On and on and on. Still, the family remains their most desired, yet maddeningly elusive, target. Help along the way. That effort was generously helped, perhaps, at first, innocently, by the theories of Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939, the Austrian neurologist cum psychiatrist who was wildly successful in convincing the relatively new and free-thinking American public that the genesis of neuroses, phobias, anxieties, obsessions, depression, psychosis, and general psychological malfunction not only took place in the first few years of life, but were to be blamed on the mothers. Later therapists, like the sadistic psychiatrist Bruno Bettelheim, blamed cold mothers for their children's autism. Mission number 1 accomplished. Mothers are not good for children. These psychological theories prevailed throughout the 20th century and up to today, embraced by generations of psychiatrists, psychoanalysts, and psychotherapists until 1998, when they were thoroughly debunked by Judith Rich Harris in The Nurture Assumption, where the Harvard-educated psychologist and editor of most of the psychology texts used in colleges and medical schools in America argued persuasively that a person's peer group is the major influence of thought, feelings, and behavior throughout life. The next step. In 1960, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, approved the most world-changing medication in history, developed by Dr. John Rock, a Harvard professor and obstetrician gynecologist with 5 children, along with doctors Gregory Pincus, C.M. Fang, and Celso Garcia. Their creation was the birth control pill, aka the pill. For the first time in world history, the narrative goes, women had control over their reproduction. For millions of women, it was their own declaration of independence, and a huge relief not to have to worry every month about getting pregnant. Mission number 2 accomplished. Now we can be just like men, some women reasoned, and have as much sex as we want without worrying about getting pregnant. Thus was the free sex movement born, ushering in a complete redefinition of traditional morality. Get out of the house. 3 years after the pill, in 1963, a book by Betty Friedan, a housewife with 3 children from Queens, New York, shot to the top of every bestseller list. In essence, the feminine mystique told women that they were simply too smart, too creative, too intrinsically, or at least potentially powerful to be spending their time, actually wasting their time, changing diapers, folding laundry, and, the most colossal waste of time of all, raising children. Friedan's book resonated. Mission number 3 accomplished. Multimillions of young women abandoned the once desired goal of early marriage and motherhood and instead enrolled in colleges and universities, where they pursued professional careers ranging from medicine and law and architecture to jobs like telephone line women to military combatants to firefighters to hedge fund managers to business executives et al. Coincidentally, an economy that once allowed men to work outside the home and support a wife and put children through college magically became an economy that only 2 working parents could afford. It's kind of like an economy that was completely energy independent in 2020 under President Trump, but quite magically became one in which President Biden had to beg foreign countries to sell him oil in 2021. Reality sets in. The 60s also ushered in the historically unprecedented rash of violent assassinations, live on TV, of U.S. President John F. Kennedy in 1963, age 46, firebrand black activist Malcolm X in 1965, age 39, civil rights leader Martin Luther King, Jr. in 1968, age 39, and former Attorney General and presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy in 1968, age 42. All of a sudden, the idealized world of the newly emancipated women was shattered. The world is out of control, they realized. Is it any wonder that so many of them enthusiastically embraced or attended the 1969 Woodstock Music Festival with not only free sex, but a geyser of drugs for the smoking and snorting and injecting? Mission number 4 accomplished. Many of these college-educated women congratulated themselves on avoiding marriage and especially motherhood, asking themselves, who wants to bring a child into this world? Only a few years later, in 1971, Gloria Steinem, we are becoming the men we wanted to marry, and editor Letty Cotton Pogrebin founded the first national feminist magazine. Ms. Mission number 5 accomplished. The traditional nuclear family was being dismantled by a new generation of women who bought into the notion that making money is infinitely more satisfying, meaningful, and important than raising children. Marriage out, now babies out. On January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court issued a 7-2 decision in Roe v. Wade that all women have a right to an abortion. To this day, that decision is the holy grail of millions of women who believe that my body, my choice starts after they've had sex and gotten pregnant with a baby they don't want. In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and sent the decision for abortion back to each individual state. Today, every woman in the United States who wants an abortion can get one, although some may have to endure the inconvenience of traveling to another state. Forget about the inconvenience their embryos face of a death sentence. Mission number 6 accomplished. The once most cherished accomplishment of both men and women, to be the parent of a newborn baby, was effectively reduced to ending that baby's life in utero. Today, in some states, abortion exists right up to the moment a full-term baby is delivered. And in California, believe it or not, even up to the time a healthy, thriving baby is 28 days old. I believe that is called infanticide. The ticking clock. After graduating from college and laboring in the workforce for over a decade, millions of women realized that this money-making thing wasn't all it was cracked up to be. But looking for a good man, after stepping on their necks on the way up the ladder, was even more problematic. Nevertheless, the new social phenomenon of women marrying in their mid-30s and older took hold, and not coincidentally gave rise to a booming in vitro fertilization industry, as millions of these new brides learned that conceiving and carrying a child after the age of 35 is both a high-risk and extremely pricey enterprise. Mission number 7 accomplished. Take the joy out of intimacy and sex, make it a mechanical act, and further erode both marriage and the family at the same time. But what about my career? Modern women have been told by the influencers of the day that they can have it all: marriage, children, and career. Since they wanted it all, they bought it. Some women were lucky to have their mothers or mothers-in-law or even young grandmothers volunteer to raise their children, and a rare few could afford expensive nannies. But most women had to rely on another industry that boomed like no other: the daycare business, where mothers dropped off their infants, babies, toddlers, and preschoolers to paid workers who tended up to 20 or more children at a time, making sure those children were safe and fed, but not necessarily held, loved, comforted, taught, or nurtured. This allowed the mothers to brag that the hour or so they spent with their child at the end of a day, in which both mother and child were exhausted, was, quality time. Mission number 8 accomplished. Women out of the home, children being raised by strangers, the American family being dismantled piece by piece. The genius Steve factor. There were two geniuses: Steve Case, the founding CEO of America Online, AOL, in 1983, which really took off in the 90s, and Steve Jobs, who invented, created, introduced the iPhone in 2007 and the iPad in 2010. No need to elaborate on the degree to which these geniuses eliminated face-to-face communication and succeeded in riveting both parents and children to all the tantalizing distractions on these electronic devices that separate people and depersonalize intimate relationships, especially meaningful communication between parents and children. Mission number 9 accomplished. Family concerns take a back seat to beeping texts, sexy emojis, Facebook invitations, Instagram images, Hollywood gossip, and horrifically graphic porn sites, which even savvy 8-year-olds can access with ease. Worse, this has given rise to an entire generation of sociopaths who, understandably, have little or no human empathy, given the largely robotic care they've received. And now we have an ad, since removed and eliminated from every search engine, that shows a child laughing and sharing an experience with her clearly delighted mother. Both are on iPads communicating long distance. The ad ends with a voice telling the mother, "You don't have to be there." Right. The mother doesn't have to be there to raise and love and comfort and teach and tuck her child in at night. And the father doesn't have to be there either. Only big government should raise their child to be a good little obedient communist. That's the message. Mission number 10 accomplished. Father never mentioned. Mother out of the picture. The actual premeditated murder of the American family. And the crashing failure of the feminist movement. I rest my case. Joan Swirsky is a New York-based journalist and author. Her website is
And that was The Crashing Failure of the Feminist Movement. It's an article in the American Thinker by Joan Swirsky. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of motivation.
Every champion has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Every soldier has felt it. Every victorious person has felt it. The urge to quit. I don't care if you don't have the money, you don't have the help, and you don't have the family for it, and you don't have the friends for it. Don't you give up on your dream.
I want you to hold on. It may not happen in the time that you think is going to happen, but I want you to know something. If you quit, it's never going to happen. If you quit, if you give up, if you stop, if you do not persevere, you will never see it.
See, the thing is, for many people, they've tried the same path you're on, and they failed. As you walk this journey, you're going to see carcasses all over the place of people that didn't quite have it. That should inspire you because you got further than that person and that person. But you're not looking to get further than them. You're looking to finish.
I didn't get here through academics. I got here because I refused to quit. I said, I've been through enough pain. I got to get a reward for it.
So often, the key is that we just keep running. We stay positive, and we never give up. Life is not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a series of sprints combined with a boxing match. We're not just running, but we're getting hit along the way. And here's the key. Our optimism is a competitive advantage. Our belief, our positivity.
Why are we afraid of bloodshed? It might have to be some. It might have to be some crime and some separation or some letting go. It's okay.
All of these things that are happening to me right now, they're just temporary inconveniences. They're not stronger than I am. I'm in charge here.
Too often you have a dream of creating this or getting involved with there, but at the end of the day, sometimes this fear of will I fail, will I make it, will I achieve it, the challenge is learning to punch that fear right in its mouth. I'm talking about the fear of that voice in the back of your head that makes you think that you can't. And you know what? Maybe you'll make a mistake, but you're failing forward. The thing that we have to continue to passionately, uncompromisably not give in on is the fact that I'm not staying stagnant. I'm moving forward because what I feed will grow and what I starve will die.
Every time you're doing what you're supposed to do and it don't look like it's supposed to look, and people get in your ear, and all of a sudden you don't feel comfortable no more, and you feel under pressure. Instead of you going in the pocket and being who you're supposed to be, you start running another way. Why you keep crying about pushing through houses? Listen, you got put through that because what that does, that tension produces greatness. You fight on the street, but when your teacher give you a math test, now you want to punk out. Somebody tell you to write a 5-page paper, now you scared. Don't back up on no test. You approach the test the same way you approach somebody who approach you on the streets. You don't quit, you don't give up, you don't run. Stop running from it and run to it. Stop telling me what you're going through. The greats, they get to it, they go through it. Stop running and face it. And the harder it is, the better.
Keep on moving. Keep on moving. Don't try and stop and pull people out the race to come look at blood dripping down your face. Don't feel sorry for yourself and try and organize a pity party. The sharks are part of the program. It's necessary that you develop stickability, that you take a stand, that you dig in. It's necessary to know there are going to be some difficult times, that when you are in transition, there's going to be a drop in your energy. You're going to be tired. That's why it's so important that when you get up in the morning, when your feet hit the ground, you stand up, getting up. All right, life, I'm ready for you. I'm fortifying myself. I'm meditating. I'm reading my goals. I know it's possible, and I know it's necessary that I put my stuff to the test. So I'm coming out here. I know I'm going to have to take some blows, find out how strong I am. Can I stand up? I know I'm going to experience some rejection and disappointment. I know I'm going to have some cash flow problems, some relationship problems. I know there are going to be some hard decisions to make. I know there are going to be some moments when I don't know what to do, that things are going to be so uncertain that I'm going to feel overwhelmed and feel like I can't handle it. I know I'm going to experience all of that. Why? It's necessary. It's a part of life. All of that will create you into a certain kind of person. That as you go through that experience, what you become in the process, the goal itself will be anticlimactic. You'll discover a part of you that you did not know was there. So you can look yourself in the mirror with respect.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now from the Rogue Hypnotist, how to manipulate everyone.
The danger of toxic communication. In all that we label mental illnesses, there is or has been what you might call toxic communication. These pathological communication patterns alone can create psychological distress. This book details what this toxic influence is. It is found, perhaps, most readily in a cult, but is found throughout all of wider society, which is often nothing more than a competing cult process itself. A cult is really a pathological society. This book will arm you with tools to protect yourself from malignant influence, pressure, and persuasion. There is no such thing as cult thinking, precisely because the capacity for independent thought has been disabled completely in such a psychopathically controlled environment. Mindbender's Rule 1. Toxic communication is always abusive. Its aim is to demoralize you. Demoralization lowers your self-worth, and then you become suggestible/programmable. Pathological trance and the cult. In my other works on hypnosis, I identified something I call pathological trance. This is a trance state that is dangerous to the person experiencing it. A person in such a state may look wide awake to a person unaware of trance behavior. However, experiments have shown that most people, untrained in hypnotic phenomenon, cannot identify a hypnotically entranced person that has been hypnotized to look awake. All cults, no matter what their name, despite the mask they wear, the veil of respectability, organizational structure they use, or forms they take, seek to induce a permanent hypnotic trance in their slaves, where critical thinking is entirely absent and permanently abolished. They want slavish obedience without question. If you ever experience this, in any walk of life, you're in a cult. As hypnosis may be defined as a technique for removing, or at least slowing down, even disabling the conscious critical factor of the mind, I think I know a thing or two about this subject. It was my bread and butter for years. Who is the rogue hypnotist? If you're a long-term reader, welcome back. If you're new, and so I'm new, you may want to read the following. Well, I am the rogue hypnotist. It's my pen name. I was a highly successful hypnotherapist working in London, England. In 2013, I started writing a 16-volume series of books on my experiences as a clinical hypnotherapist and master practitioner of NLP. By the time I retired from the field, I could cure 99% of my clients in one 1-hour session. I saw and helped people from all walks of life, from bricklayers, lawyers, journalists, CEOs of million-dollar companies, even people connected to British royalty. My first book, How to Hypnotize Anyone, was the #1 best-selling book on hypnosis on Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk for years. It covered the core basics of hypnosis, demystifying the subject for a very large amount of people. I taught readers all I knew about how the mind actually works and how to influence it. I showed therapists how to treat all manner of so-called mental health problems, giving detailed descriptions of my observations and methods in a 10-book Confessions of series. I invented the study of cultural hypnosis and weirdnosis. In fact, no one else has ever written on either subject before or since. I wrote a trilogy of books on suggestion. I followed this up with a trilogy on persuasion. Every book I ever wrote zoomed to either #1 or 2 in the hypnosis charts of Amazon, where I sell my books exclusively. All my books are easy to read, fun, and written for the general reader, not specialists, although they are, of course, welcome. And then I didn't write another thing for over 2 years. I thought I had said everything I wanted to say, until now. A note to new and returning patrons. Loyal readers, thank you for your new or continued support. It is much appreciated. Past readers may notice some repetition of themes from earlier books. These have only been included to bring newcomers up to scratch. This is an advanced level book, in that it continues on from the subject matter contained in earlier books, but with a new perspective and hopefully greater depth. For newcomers, you do not have to have read any of my other books to get a great deal out of this one. You can start here. It's all very easy to understand. Manipulation is a common theme in all my books. Now it is at the forefront. I think taken to a new level. This is not necessarily a book for professional hypnotherapists per se. Although they are welcome, it is not a book on hypnotherapy. It is a book on hypnosis. It is not an academic book on cults, or a strictly how-to book. More of a how not to. The Rogue Hypnotist's definition of hypnosis. Okay, are you ready? Mindbender's Rule 2. Any form of communication that is directed to non-conscious mind processes is hypnosis. A swift summary. Hypnosis is a state of deep absorption. You can have your eyes wide open and be absorbed. Trance is daydreaming. Hypnotic trance is a combination of both. Watching TV hypnotizes you. Reading a book hypnotizes you. Focusing on a computer screen hypnotizes you. Talking or listening to a fascinating person hypnotizes you. Looking at anything beautiful hypnotizes you. The hypnotic state is defined by the absence of conscious, controlled thought in the mind. In therapy, hypnosis can be used in a cooperative way, a mutual, respectful, professional effort to solve problems that cause anxiety, addictions, etc. This form of hypnosis should be fully consensual. However, hypnosis can be elicited by skilled language manipulation. The use of certain letters of the alphabet, numbers, images, emotions, shock, a crisis, repetition, rhythm, sensory deprivation, isolation, drugs, music, sound, touch, pain, stress, and most importantly, by the mere presence of a perceived authority figure. All of this is referred to in depth in my other books. The cult organization. Where any group of people interact, there can be a cult. They need not ever meet in person. A family can be a cult. A street gang can be a cult. A school can be a cult. A political party or government can be a cult. A business with loyal customers can be a cult. Any organization of humans can behave in a cult-like manner. All you need for a cult to exist is the suppression of free speech, the end of free inquiry, the destruction of free thought, the systematic programming and reconfiguration of cult slaves, cult dependency, the systematic control of every aspect of a slave's life, from dawn to dusk, even whilst they sleep. All you need for a cult to exist is a human hierarchy with psychopaths at the top, who control the material means to enforce rewards and punishments in a captive population. Cults expect mindless obedience. What cults really want, but never openly say, is a bio-robot human. Beware the mind benders. Since the dawn of time, it seems, men have enslaved other men. Once enslaved, most usually by military conquest, the subjugated must be controlled by their new rulers, lest they seek to be free once more. Methods of control have varied, but can usually be summed up as follows. Physical control, psychological control, spiritual control, economic control. But, in the past 100 years, with the advance of modern technology, we can now realistically add technological control. Many rulers and ruling gangs throughout history have wanted perfected slaves. Social groupings where the prospect of a successful slave rebellion is impossible. Slaves who are not aware that slaves they think they're free, or if they are aware, are happy about it. The desire of mad people to create perfect slave colonies is the subject of this book. Mindbender's Rule 3. Mindbenders want docile slaves. A cult, as defined by me, is a gang of psychopaths who want slaves, and who are willing to do anything at all to enslave them. It all started with Plato, probably. Let us start with one of the most famous mad people in history, the Greek philosopher Plato. Plato wrote in his book, The Republic, of the ideal society, at least as he saw it. His vision was somewhat based on the ancient Spartan constitution. We would recognize it today as an aristocratic, communist slave state, with an educated elite, and dumb, docile slaves. By the Middle Ages, Thomas More had written his Utopia, in which he, like Plato, advocated for an aristocratic communist slave state with an educated elite and dumb, docile slaves. In the mid to late 19th century, Karl Marx, the messiah of world communism, wrote his voluminous trilogy, Das Kapital. Surprisingly, he advocated an aristocratic slave state with an educated elite and dumb, docile slaves. The only real fundamental difference between Plato and Marx was that Marx advocated for an atheistic society, which Lenin duly delivered as a form of technological feudalism in 1917. Whereas Plato, being somewhat of a mystagogue, wanted some sort of politicized Orphic mystery cult for the elite, and bred for purpose hermaphrodite slaves at the bottom. By the 1930s, Adolf Hitler rose to power, a powerful demagogue with a talent for oratory, and an occult knowledge of the weak spots of mankind, who advocated, well, you get the idea. The players and the window dressing change, but the aim remains the same. As an interesting end note, the Greek philosopher Aristotle advocated a tyranny also, but his was more of a gentleman's club. Much like 19th century England under the Whigs, he also suggested that the elite should have regular families and look after their own children. Plato was more of a hippie commune type, believing women should be shared collectively, with children owned and raised by the state. Aristotle's model held, it seems, no long-term traction with elites. Note, when I use the term aristocratic, etc., I mean a gang of people who fantasize that they are the best. Aristocracy means rule by the best. Aristeas was the Greek god who looked after the beehive. From ancient times, mystery religions have used the metaphor of the beehive to represent human societies. Mindbenders Rule 4. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. No matter what kind of slave state you want, you need to bend the mind of the slaves to get it. You see, control freaks down through the ages have all had to contend with one tricky little problem. The human soul's wish to be free. We have an evil plan. But, how do you break a free spirit? We now turn our attention to the methodology. Getting from A to B. Now, in order to accomplish any plan, you need to take action. If our cult is to take over, we must get from A to B. A will be the existing state of affairs. B will be full cult takeover. To do that in one big jump is much harder than doing it gradually. You can use revolutions when you want a great leap of change. Wars and crises are the best cover for this, giving an excuse for rapid alterations in societies. But you use evolution, the technique of gradualism, to change things slowly, almost imperceptibly, over generations. I would define this process as going from sane to insane. As cults are insane gangs, run by and for the benefit of insane people, we need to make our slaves as mad as we are. The primary psychological technique we are going to use is often referred to as brainwashing. It would be more accurately labeled human reprogramming. Before we get to the reprogramming, let's talk about our future slave class. We need a theory that can be turned into practice of how humans process information. How to take a mind that thinks, was born to think, and turn it into one that parrots what we have put into it. Oh, by the way, from now on I am simply going to refer to our hypothetical cult as the Uber cult. Communication style in cults. Although I have written about cults in previous books, we need to understand how to identify the core communication patterns that occur within them. Is cult dogma, the way, exclusively promoted and tolerated? This is actually the single focus of attention found in hypnosis. Is questioning the cult dogma attacked? Are questioners vilified and demonized? Are they threatened with punishments for such actions? Is there a rigid hierarchy with subordinates expected to obey commands without question? Does it seem impossible to escape the cult's grasp? Its range of influence? Is there a no-cult space that can be fled to? Everything else the cult does stems from these core principles. If you answered yes to the first 3 points, and no to the final point, you are dealing with a cult. Remember, the way, demonization of doubters, slavish obedience, no escape, equals cult. The secret of cults. In order to identify a cult, you need to know that all of them worship death secretly. They are all deeply evil. However, this evil is hidden from the outside world. A front of respectability and high moral authority is worn as a mask. Behind every evil act, a high moral purpose is feigned. This is simply the adoption of the principle of opposite world, which I proposed in my book, Escaping Cultural Hypnosis. Inversion. Cults may also be identified by their attack on sane, healthy, moral-based value systems. To a psychopath, up is down. Good is evil and evil good. Abusive behavior is normalized. Sadism is a sign of being tough. A cult is a protection racket. They'll take care of you, in the sense that the mafia might use that phrase. The underlying psychomythology of the cult. All cults have a repetitive superstructural religion of control. They all possess a contemptuous view of humans. Let's start with Homo domesticus. As a farmed animal, man manifests the following attributes. These are the 10 laws of domesticated humans. 1. Cowardice. The domesticated human is above all a groveling coward. Behind every persuasive act, every recommendation, is a veiled threat of sheer brute force if domesticated humans were to foolishly yearn for any real freedom. Stupidity. The domesticated human is taught to be only as intelligent as is necessary to carry out its allotted task in the social hierarchy/economy. 3. Gullible. Linked to high suggestibility is gullibility. That is, the placing of trust in certain individuals who have done nothing to demonstrate that such trust is deserved, or even a sane thing to do. Naivety is a must. Domesticated humans must never be allowed to grow up, but must be treated as children forever. This is known as infantilization. 4. Hysterical. Most domesticated humans are incapable of rational thought. They process all decision-making through their emotions. Their current emotional state is their sole guide to living. That is to say, domesticated humans are in an ongoing pathological trance state. 5. Anxious. From early childhood, most domesticated humans are in a low-level state of anxiety. This anxiety makes them miserable and easy to control. Temporary pleasure, a brief absence of anxiety pain, may be awarded to domesticated humans who please those who supply their ability to achieve their most basic means of survival. If they are bad, their anxiety levels can be increased easily. 6. Hedonism. Because domesticated humans dislike their almost constant state of anxiety, they seek refuge in hedonistic excess. This relieves them for as long as they are absorbed in the hedonistic pursuit of choice. Addiction. Sex, so-called recreational drugs, food, alcohol, overwatching TV, films, excessively playing computer games, etc. 7. The illusion of power. All domesticated humans believe they have a degree of control over their lives. The fact is they don't, because they abdicated their real power to their owners. Domesticated humans do have tremendous power, which they never use. This was even written about by Tacitus. 8. Faith in priesthoods. From ancient times, all humans have been manipulated by those who claim knowledge of the mysteries. That is, a body of knowledge only known to the priesthood, that must be followed uncritically by the profane. For fear of X, Y, Z. 9. Scapegoating. All mystery religions require a scapegoat. That is, a group of people, heretics, upon whom all of society's ills may be blamed. What the heretics believe and who they are is irrelevant and constantly changing. It is the arbitrary nature of such demonization which makes the technique so effective. Anxiety is kept high, because anyone could be next in line for the chop. Domesticated humans love scapegoating. It allows them to relinquish all sense of personal responsibility. They get to feel superior to others, if only briefly. This temporary feeling of feeling good about oneself is highly addictive to people with usually low self-worth. Men, rewards and punishments. Law has nothing to do with morality or conscience. It has everything to do with obedience. Laws may be wholly immoral and nonsensical. In fact, it is best if they are. This increases anxiety and causes no end of physical and mental health problems, which disable the domesticated humans, making them far less likely to rebel. All means of getting essential human needs met, such as food, shelter, and companionship, etc., can only be realized if cult law is followed. In any human herd, there are psychopaths. You simply create a large enough gang of them, train them in rudimentary herd management, give them devices that cause physical harm, and let them hunt troublemakers. Quite simple. Emotional manipulation. The currency of the cult. Fear, guilt, shame, anger, misery, unmet needs. There is also pleasure, which we will deal with later. There is also physical pain, which we will deal with soon enough.
And that is this part of the book, How to Manipulate Everyone by the Rogue Hypnotist. Back in a minute. Thank you. And this is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that rights are not collective. They are joint and several.